My Weird School, Book number 19. Dr. Carbles is losing his marbles. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Pelot. Chapter 1. Squanto and Pocahontas. My name is AJ and I hate school. Do you know what the only good part of school is? The end of it at 3 o'clock when we get to go home. But at the end of school this one day in November, we weren't allowed to go home at 3. The school secretary, Mrs. Patty, made an announcement that everybody had to go to the all-purpose room. That's a room we use for all purposes, so it has the perfect name. Bummer in the summer. So we were sitting there, bored out of our minds, when suddenly 2 American Indians came running down the aisle. They were wearing feathers and headdresses. They jumped onto the stage, whooping and hollering. But they couldn't fool us. We knew exactly who they were. "It's Mrs. Rupee," yelled my friend Michael, who never ties his shoes. "Mrs. Rupee is our librarian." "And Mr. Klutz," yelled my friend Ryan, who will eat anything, even stuff that isn't food. "Mr. Klutz is our principal, and he has no hair." "Klutz?" said Mr. Klutz. "Never heard of him. I am Squanto, a Patuxet Indian who helped the Pilgrims survive their first years in America." "And I am Pocahontas," said Mrs. Rupee. "I helped the English colonists when they arrived in Virginia in 1607. Mrs. Rupee always dresses up like somebody else. She never admits she's the librarian. Mrs. Rupee is loopy." "Thanksgiving is coming up," said Mr. Klutz. "To celebrate, we want to introduce you to a friend of ours." They went behind the curtain, and you'll never believe in 1,100,000 years who they brought out on stage with them. I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. But you have to read the next chapter. So na-na-na-boo-boo on you. Chapter 2. Turkeys are weird. It was a turkey. They brought a turkey right out on stage. Now, I've seen plenty of dead turkeys in sandwiches, but I've never seen a live one before. This turkey was dressed like a pilgrim, with a little bonnet and dress. It was hilarious. All the kids went nuts. "Gobble, gobble," said the turkey. "Where do you think Mr. Klutz got a turkey?" asked Neil Crouch, who we call Neil the Nude Kid even though he wears clothes. "Maybe he rented it," said Michael. "You can rent anything. There's probably a place called Rent a Turkey." "For my birthday party, my parents rented a lady dressed like a clown," said Ryan. "If you can rent a lady dressed like a clown, then you can probably rent a turkey dressed like a lady." "For my birthday party, my parents rented a pony," said this annoying girl with curly brown hair named Andrea Young. "We all got pony rides." "Why can't a pony fall on her head?" Mr. Klutz had his arms wrapped around the turkey so she couldn't escape. She didn't look very happy. "This is our friend Gobbles," said Mrs. Rupee. "She's going to help us get into the spirit of Thanksgiving." Everybody yelled, "Hello!" to Gobbles. "Gobble, gobble," said Gobbles, flapping her wings. Mr. Klutz was having a hard time holding on to her. "Isn't Gobbles cute?" asked Andrea. "No," I said. "What is our problem? Turkeys aren't cute. Penguins are cute. Turkeys are ugly. If they were cute, we wouldn't eat them. You don't see anybody eating penguins, do you? Besides, if Andrea thinks something is cute, then I don't. Gobble, gobble, said Gobbles again. She was really flapping her wings hard now. Turkeys are weird. They can't fly. What's the point of being a bird if you can't fly? That would be like being a fish that can't swim. Gobbles was probably upset because Thanksgiving was coming. If I was a turkey, I would hate Thanksgiving too. I'll make a deal with you, said Mr. Klutz, who is always making deals with us. If each class creates a beautiful Thanksgiving display, I will get married to Gobbles. Wow! It would be cool to see Mr. Klutz marry a turkey. This was going to be even better than the time he kissed a pig on the lips. Everybody was going crazy, cheering and stamping their feet. Gobbles didn't seem to like all that noise. She started gobbling really loud. Then she freaked out and broke away from Mr. Klutz. Gobbles went running off the stage. She jumped into the front row where the first graders sit. The first graders freaked out, shrieking and crying and running away. Then everybody started freaking out. Run for your lives, shouted Neil the nude kid. There's a wild turkey on the loose. All the kids were screaming and running and crashing into each other. You should have been there. And you'll never believe who came into the all-purpose room at that very moment. It was Dr. Carbles, the president of the Board of Education. I always thought Mr. Klutz was important, like he was the king of the school. But if Mr. Klutz is like the king of the school, then Dr. Carbles is like the king of the world. He probably sits on a throne and has servants fan him with big feathers. I saw that in a movie once. Klutz, he hollered. What's the meaning of this? Why is it that every time I come to this school, you're in some weird costume and the students are running around like lunatics? It's just a little discipline problem, sir, Mr. Klutz said as he chased Gobbles around. I'm going to put Gobbles in detention. Don't you have any sense, Klutz? Shouted Dr. Carbles. We have enough discipline problems with the children. Why would you bring a turkey to school? To marry it, somebody said. That's when Gobbles went berserk. She crashed into Dr. Carbles and knocked him down. That's it, Klutz, Dr. Carbles yelled. You're fired. Chapter 3. Meet the new boss. What? Mr. Klutz was fired? It couldn't be true. We were all shocked. I thought it was one of those times when something really horrible happens and then it turns out just to be a dream. I saw that in a movie once. But the next morning, while we were putting our backpacks away, everybody was talking about what happened. Dr. Carbles can't fire Mr. Klutz, said Michael. Well, he did, said Ryan. But Mr. Klutz is the best principal in the world, said Neil the nude kid. Neil was right. Everybody loved Mr. Klutz. I was sad. Some kids were crying. Teachers were hugging each other in the hallway and dabbing their eyes with tissues. It was like Mr. Klutz had died. After we pledged the allegiance, our teacher, Miss Daisy, said we should remember the good times we had with Mr. Klutz. Remember when he got his foot caught at the top of the flagpole and was hanging upside down? said Ryan. Remember when he dressed like Santa in the holiday pageant and he was hanging upside down from his sleigh? Said Michael. Once I got called to his office and he was hanging upside down from the ceiling, I told everybody. Mr. Klutz sure hangs upside down a lot, said Emily, who was a big crybaby. It was hard to concentrate on reading and math that morning. We were all thinking about the good old days with Mr. Klutz. When it was time to go to the vomitorium for lunch, we were still talking about him. They'll have to get us a new principal, said Andrea, who was sitting with her annoying girlfriends at the next table. Who do you think it will be? Asked Ryan. I hope he's nice, said Emily, who always hopes everybody will be nice. How do you know it will be a he? Said Andrea. Maybe the principal will be a lady. Maybe one of the teachers will become principal, Michael said, like Mr. Docker or Miss Hannah. Being principal is an important job, said Neil the nude kid. There's lots to do, like yell at kids and boss around teachers. And dress up in weird costumes and marry turkeys, I added. It will be hard to find someone who can fill Mr. Klutz's shoes, said Andrea. Who cares about filling his shoes? I said. We just need a new principal. What would they fill his shoes with anyway? It's just an expression, dumbhead, Andrea said. So is your face, I told her. We didn't have to wait long to find out who the new principal would be. At the end of the day, we had to go to the all-purpose room again. Once everybody was seated, a lady got up on stage. She told us her name was Mrs. Haney, and she was the superintendent of all the schools in the country. Wow! And we thought Dr. Carbles was important. If Dr. Carbles is like the king of the world, then Mrs. Haney is like the queen of the universe. I bet she can fly and see through walls, I whispered to Michael. That's why she's superintendent. Mrs. Haney said she knew we were sad about Mr. Klutz and told us not to worry. Nothing would change now that he was gone. I'd like to introduce you to your new principal, she announced. And you'll never believe in 1,100,000 years who walked out on the stage. I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. And you don't even have to read the next chapter. It was Dr. Carbles. Chapter 4. Dr. Carbles is a meanie. Dr. Carbles? I always thought you had to go to principal school to be a principal, but I guess any dumbhead can be a principal. Dr. Carbles wasn't wearing his usual jacket and tie. He was wearing an army uniform with black boots and a whistle around his neck. In one hand, he was holding a bullhorn. In the other, he had a whip. He didn't say anything at first. He just walked down the aisle, looking us over. Nobody made a move. Nobody made a sound. It was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. We were all afraid of Dr. Carbles. He had a scowl on his face. Even Miss Daisy looked scared. Finally, Dr. Carbles put the bullhorn to his mouth. Attention! Dr. Carbles hollered, and we all straightened up in our seats. This school is pathetic. You are unruly. You are undisciplined. You are totally disrespectful. I won't stand for it. He was really mad. You don't go to school to have fun, he shouted. You go to school to learn, so you can get into college and have a productive life. "But I'm only in first grade," said one of the first graders. Then she started to cry. "Silence!" shouted Dr. Carbles. He cracked his whip, and everybody jumped. "There are going to be some changes around here. Mr. Klutz was too easy on you. There will be no more turkeys and silly costumes and contests. From now on, we will focus on the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and rules. We're going to turn you students into lean, mean learning machines. And if you don't like the way I do things, well, maybe you'd like to spend a little time in the dungeon on the 3rd floor. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, Dr. Carbles," everybody mumbled. "Children behave better when they're wearing uniforms," Dr. Carbles told us. "So from now on, you will wear the official uniform of elementary school." The PTA moms went up and down the rows, passing out a bag to each of us. "That's all for now," Dr. Carbles said. "Any questions?" "Can I go to the bathroom?" somebody asked. "No," Dr. Carbles yelled. "Weak bladders lead to weak minds. Do you think George Washington went to the bathroom when he was crossing the Delaware?" "They had bathrooms on the Delaware?" asked Ryan. "Will we still have recess?" somebody asked. "No," Dr. Carbles yelled. "Recess is for wimps." "Will we still be allowed to play in the playground after school?" Michael asked. "No," Dr. Carbles yelled. "You're going to march in the playground after school." Sure enough, when the 3 o'clock bell rang, Dr. Carbles led us out onto the playground. We had to form a line, with the 5th graders at the front and the kindergarten trolls at the back. "Left, right, left, right," Dr. Carbles yelled as we marched. "Stop lagging behind, kindergarteners." Dr. Carbles had us march around the playground 1,100,000 times. I thought I was gonna die.